Welcome, everyone. Lance Scurv X here, the Scurv Podcast. You don't need revenge. Life collects every debt. I'm going to tell you a secret that many people spend years trying to learn the hard way. The cookie always crumbles. It doesn't matter how powerful someone appears today. It doesn't matter how convincing their lies may seem, how carefully they craft their image, or how many people are fooled by their performance. Time has a way of revealing what people work so hard to conceal. What is hidden today often becomes obvious tomorrow, and what appears strong on the surface can be quietly rotting underneath. The problem is that most of us become impatient. We want truth revealed immediately. We want justice served on demand. We want people exposed the moment they wrong us. But life rarely operates according to our personal timetable. Many of us have wasted years carrying the burden of trying to expose people who hurt us. We spend sleepless nights replaying conversations in our minds, analyzing every detail, imagining confrontations, and rehearsing speeches that we may never actually give. We convince ourselves that if we can just find the right words, present the right evidence, or make the right argument, everyone will finally understand what really happened. Yet, while we are exhausting ourselves emotionally, life is quietly doing its own work in the background. The truth doesn't need our constant assistance. Time has a remarkable way of uncovering what deception works tirelessly to protect. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that time handles people far better than I could. Time is patient. Time doesn't become emotional. Time doesn't get distracted by pride, anger, or frustration. It simply keeps moving forward, allowing people to reveal themselves through their choices, habits, and behavior patterns. Every day that passes becomes another opportunity for character to reveal itself. Those who are dishonest continue building upon dishonesty. Those who manipulate continue strengthening those tendencies. Those who refuse accountability continue creating conditions that eventually produce consequences. Meanwhile, many of us are exhausting ourselves trying to speed up a process that is already underway. The reality is that many people spend their lives chasing accountability from individuals who have no intention of being accountable. They want an apology. They want recognition. They want acknowledgement of the pain that was caused. They want someone to finally admit what was done wrong. While those desires are understandable, they can also become a trap. When your peace depends upon another person's confession, your peace is no longer under your control. When your healing depends upon someone else's honesty, your healing remains hostage to their willingness to tell the truth. That is a dangerous place to live because some people will never become the person you need them to be. This is why learning to let go becomes such an important skill. Letting go is often misunderstood as weakness, surrender, or acceptance of wrongdoing. In reality, letting go is none of those things. Letting go simply means recognizing that not every battle belongs to you. It means understanding that your energy is valuable and that spending years trying to force accountability from resistant people comes at a tremendous cost. Every hour spent obsessing over someone's behavior is an hour that could have been invested in your own growth. Every day spent waiting for an apology is a day that could have been spent building a better future. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to stop fighting for an outcome that time is already preparing to deliver. That's a fact. One of the biggest emotional traps people fall into is the endless pursuit of closure. They convince themselves that healing cannot begin until one final conversation takes place. They believe they need one last explanation, one last opportunity to be heard, one final chance to make someone understand the damage they caused. The problem is that closure often becomes an illusion. Many people spend years waiting for a moment that never arrives because the person they are seeking closure from lacks the self-awareness, honesty, or maturity to provide it. When we become dependent upon another person to validate our experience, we unknowingly hand them tremendous power over our emotional well-being. We allow them to determine when we move forward. We allow them to influence how long we remain stuck. We allow them to occupy valuable space within our minds long after they should have been removed from our lives. The pursuit of closure can quietly transform into emotional imprisonment, keeping us connected to the situations that should have been left behind years ago. The truth is that many people never receive the apology they deserve. Many never hear the admission of guilt they were hoping for. Many never witness the accountability they spent years expecting. Yet countless individuals still heal, still grow, and still move forward because they eventually realize that closure is not something another person grants them. Closure is a decision. It's the moment when you stop waiting for someone else's participation in your healing process and accept responsibility for your own emotional freedom. The day you stop requiring validation from those who hurt you is often the day your true recovery begins. One of the most misunderstood realities of life is that bad behavior rarely remains isolated. It grows, it compounds, it builds momentum over time. A dishonest person rarely tells one lie and then returns to complete honesty. One lie typically requires another, then another, and even another. Eventually, the person becomes trapped inside a complicated web of deception that requires constant maintenance just to keep from collapsing. What began as a small act of dishonesty gradually transforms into a way of life. The same principle applies to nearly every character flaw. Manipulation becomes a habit. Laziness becomes a lifestyle. Arrogance becomes blindness. Selfishness becomes isolation. What starts as a minor weakness eventually develops into a major limitation because repeated behavior shapes identity. People often think they're escaping consequences because nothing dramatic happens immediately. They mistake delayed consequences for the absence of consequences. In reality, the process is simply unfolding more slowly than they expected. This is often where good people become discouraged. They watch individuals who cut corners, deceive others, and operate without integrity appear to prosper. They see them gaining opportunities, receiving praise, and advancing in ways that seem unfair. During these moments, it can feel as though character no longer matters. It can appear as though honesty and integrity are disadvantages rather than strengths. However, this conclusion usually comes from observing only a small portion of a much larger story. We are witnessing a chapter while mistakenly assuming it's the final page. Time has a way of exposing weaknesses that success temporarily conceals. Eventually, the cracks begin to appear. Relationships become strained. Trust begins to disappear. Opportunities dry up. Reputations weaken. The very habits that once seemed beneficial start producing consequences that cannot be ignored. The person who built their life on shortcuts eventually discovers that shortcuts have expiration dates. The person who relied on masks eventually discovers that masks become harder to maintain. The person who spent years avoiding accountability eventually encounters circumstances where accountability can no longer be avoided. This is why I say the cookie always crumbles. It may not happen immediately, it may not happen publicly, but it happens. That's the universal law. I hope you got something from this. Thank you for being here. On to the next one. Lance Scurv out. Peace.